Erev Tov, everyone, and welcome. Okay, it is Tuesday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the East Coast of the United States. This is the House of Seven Beggars. Therefore, it must be the Shul study hall. We continue our study of the Talmud. And interesting, we have nobody watching tonight. Okay. Well, be that as it may, we will continue on. If I can get this microphone to stay in place, it keeps trying to run away from me. Okay, so we are on. I can't believe we got. Oh, there we go. Now we got somebody. Okay. Where did we leave off? We left off on page 367. And we are at Mishna, Megillat, Terumot, chapter 8. So we are about at the end of this, and we will be finishing this part, Terumot, this evening. And if I can figure out what I'm doing here, there we go. Now we've got it. Okay. So, let's see what we got with us. Okay, I was kind of worried if we were going to have anybody or not. And we have Miriam, we have Brooke, we have Daniel. What are you guys on separate computers watching the broadcast? Yochanan, Jeff, and yes, it says we do have 7 watching right now. I mean, these numbers jump when we first went on. It said 0. I was getting a little concerned there. Anyway, so, and again, I'm going to have to remember which mouse I'm trying to work with here, because it gets really confusing. I mean, we are working with 2 computers, and one has got a mouse on the laptop itself, and the other one has got a wireless mouse, and I keep grabbing the wireless mouse for some reason. I think it's just out of habit. So anyway, be that as it may, as I said, we are on Mishna, Megillat, Terumot, chapter 8, which is on page 367 of the PDF. And we will begin, as we always do, because the Talmud is comprised in a large part of Torah. The blessing for the study of Talmud is the same as the blessing for the study of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Okay. Terumot, chapter 8. Mishnah 1. If a woman was eating terumah, as she is allowed to in certain cases, and they came and said to her, "Thy husband is dead," or "He has divorced thee," or if a slave was eating terumah, and they came and said to him, "Thy master is dead," or "He has sold thee to an Israelite," or "He has given thee away as a gift," or "He has emancipated thee," so too, if a priest was eating terumah, and it became known that he was the son of a divorced woman, or of one that had given halazah, Rabbi Eliezer says they must repay both the value and a fifth. Because according to Rabbi Eliezer, at that point that they are informed, they are not entitled to eat the terumah. But Rabbi Joshua exempts them. If a priest was standing and sacrificing on the altar, and it became known that he was the son of a divorced woman, or one who had given halazah, Rabbi Eliezer says all the sacrifices he had offered on the altar are ritually disqualified. But Rabbi Joshua pronounces them valid. If it, however, became known that he possessed a blemish, his ministration is valid. In other words, he's saying, in one case, the priest or the woman or the slave did not know what the circumstances were. And their intent was that they were eating the terumah in holiness. They were entitled to it, and they were eating it with the correct purpose. Same as the priest offering the sacrifice and not knowing, and it became known to him that he was, all of a sudden, he's on the altar offering these sacrifices, and he becomes aware, somebody comes up and tells him that, his mother was divorced, or Hazilah. He did not know this, or they did not know this at the time. So they were doing it with the correct intent in their heart. And as we know, in many cases, intent has a lot to do with it. So, however, in this last case, where after this, at the very end of this, it says, if it, however, became known that he possessed a blemish, his ministration is invalid. In other words, this is something he should have known. If he had a blemish, he should be aware of it. Whether it was, something that he had been born with, or something that had happened to him along the way, or that day even, he should be aware of this. So having gone there and being aware of this, now all his ministrations are invalid because he came upon the altar blemished, as we know that they are not allowed to do. Okay, but I have to go with Rabbi Joshua on this one. Because, the proper intent is there. Rabbi Eliezer is taking a very stringent view on this, saying that, if this becomes known to them, then they have, broken the law, and they are subject to the law, which means they have to repay it along with a fifth, but it was unknown to them at the time. So this is a very strict interpretation of the law. Rabbi Joshua takes a little more of a common sense approach to it, to say, well, obviously they did not know about this. They were doing it with the right intention, and therefore they are exempt from having to repay it and pay the fifth, and so on and so forth. But then again, at the very end, somebody who has a blemish should very well know that they do have a blemish. Okay, Mishna 2. In all the above cases, if terumah was still in their mouth, Rabbi Eliezer says they may swallow it. But Rabbi Joshua says they must spit it out if it was said to them, thou art become unclean, or that the terumah is defiled. Okay, so in this case, we have it reversed. Rabbi Eliezer is taking a more lenient view and Rabbi Joshua is taking the stricter view. But the thing is the same. Rabbi Joshua says that, they are doing this without knowledge, but the minute they become aware of it, they have to stop. Rabbi Eliezer says they must repay it plus the value, but they're entitled to, since they've defiled it anyway, and they are going to have to pay it back plus its fifth, then they may swallow what they have. So Rabbi Eliezer says he may swallow it, but Rabbi Joshua says he must spit it out if it was said to him, thou hast become unclean, or that the Terumot was defiled, or it had become known that it was untithed, or that it was first tithe from which Terumot had not yet been taken, or second tithe, or dedicated produce that had not been redeemed, or if he tasted the taste of a bug in his mouth, he must spit it out. Of course, we know that bugs are not kosher. And anything that creeps on the ground that we're not allowed. We can't just swallow it. We have to spit it out. Because whatever it is in also becomes defiled because of it. And for all the kids that are watching this, that doesn't mean that you get to spit out what you don't like and say, oh, I tasted a bug. Not that I'm giving you a hint about that or anything like that, but, I'm just saying. Just saying. Okay. Mishna 3. If he was eating a bunch of grapes, and he entered from the garden into the courtyard, Rabbi Eliezer says he may finish eating, but Rabbi Joshua says he may not finish. If dusk set in at the eve of Sabbath, Rabbi Eliezer says he may finish eating, but Rabbi Joshua says he may not finish eating. Okay, and again, we see here Rabbi Eliezer taking what we consider to be a more lenient view, and Rabbi Joshua taking a more stringent view. But again, we go right back to what was the intent. If they're walking and they know that they're eating these grapes, and they okay, well, he's already made it invalid or whatever, and he comes into the courtyard, well, he might as well finish eating it. It's invalid anyway. But Rabbi Joshua says, well, if the intent is correct, then the minute he does this, he has to stop what he's doing immediately. Mishna 4. If wine of Terumot had remained uncovered, it must be poured out. And there is less need to say this in the case of Hulin. Okay, so let's go and redefine this Hulin again. Okay, what number was it? Oh, it was that one. Okay, 26. In which case, no qualms exist about waste. Okay. 3 kinds of liquids are forbidden on account of being uncovered: water, wine, and milk. But all other drinks are permitted. How long should they remain uncovered for them to become prohibited? The time it takes the serpent to creep out from a place nearby and drink. Okay. So that place may even be a vessel containing the liquid itself, namely, as long as it takes the serpent to crawl out from the crevice in the handle of the vessel, sip of its contents, and creep back. Which means not very long. Okay. Always with the snakes, huh? Always with the snakes. We talked about that in the Torah study last week, about the snakes, and the week before. Mishna 5. The amount of water that may remain uncovered must be sufficient to negative the poison therein. Okay, so based on this Mishnah, we can see what the logic is behind Mishnah 4. We're looking at a case where a snake a poisonous snake, okay? We don't know. We assume. Okay, so if we leave it and there's the potential for, a snake to come and, drink from it and poison it, then obviously we would not want to drink it for our own safety. So we see here in Mishnah 5 that we're getting kind of a justification about why we cover these things and why that length of time, and what does it have to do with a serpent. Okay, so a serpent, poisonous snake, creeps out, gets into the liquid, poisons it, and just by the mere fact that it gets into the liquid makes it disqualified anyway. But here we says must be sufficient to the water must be sufficient to negate the poison therein. In other words, dilute it so much so that it does not have any kind of an effect on the person who drinks it. Rabbi Joshua says, in vessels it is forbidden, whatever be the quantity, but for water on the ground it must be 40 seahs, which is actually quite a bit of water. Mishnah 16, or 6, 16. Where did I come up with 16? Mishnah 6. Figs, grapes, cucumbers, pumpkins, watermelons, or sweet melons that have been bitten, even if there is as much as a talent, whether they be large or small, plucked or still attached to the soil, they are forbidden as long as there is juice in them. A beast bitten by a serpent is forbidden on account of the danger to life. Because many poisonous snakes they're neurotoxins. They get into the blood, and the blood goes throughout the body, and therefore poisons all the meat. Mishnah 7. A wine filter used as a cover renders the wine beneath also forbidden through being uncovered. But Rabbi Nehemiah permits it. Okay, so saying that basically Rabbi Nehemiah is looking at this and saying, okay, well, it's a wine filter. It's intended to filter out small impurities and stuff. Therefore, if only the wine can pass through it and nothing else, then basically we should consider it as being covered. But others take the opposite view, the more stringent view, that, okay, it is used to filter and stuff. However, it is still not a cover. Mishnah 8. If a doubt of impurity arises concerning a jar of terumah, Rabbi Eliezer says, if it had been hitherto deposited in an exposed place, he must now place it in a hidden place. And if it had been formerly been uncovered, it must now be covered. But Rabbi Joshua maintains that if it had been in a hidden place, he must now deposit it in an exposed place, and if it had formerly been covered up, he must now uncover it. Rabbi Gamaliel says, let him not do anything new to it. Don't change anything about it. Mishnah 9, continuing on with the jar. If a jar of terumah was broken in the upper part of the winepress, and the lower part was unclean, both Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Joshua agree that if one can save at least a ribit, okay, let's see what that is. A quarter of a log. Okay. So a quarter of a log, and a log being about, I think we figured it out, is just about 3 gallons. So a quarter of a log. Thereof in cleanness, he should save it. But if not, Rabbi Eliezer says, let it flow down and become unclean of its own accord, and let him not make it unclean with his own hands. Mishnah 10, similarly, if a jar of oil of terumah was upset, both Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Joshua agree that if he can save thereof at least a ribit, quarter log, in cleanness, he should save it. But if not, Rabbi Eliezer says, let it flow away and be absorbed in the ground, and let him not gather it up with his own hands. Mishnah 11. Concerning both cases, Rabbi Joshua said, this is not the kind of terumah over which I am cautioned, lest I defile it, but lest I eat of it, of which was it cautioned, that thou must not defile it. If one was passing from place to place with loaves of terumah in his hand, and a Gentile said to him, give me one of these, and I will make it unclean, for if not, I will defile them all. Let him defile them all, and not give him deliberately one to defile. But Rabbi Joshua says he should place one of them on a rock. In other words, don't give it directly to the Gentile. Place it on the rock so that your hands are not the hand that are actually placing it in to be intentionally defiled. Okay, let's take a look in the chat room here. Okay. Mishnah 12. Similarly, if Gentiles say to a woman, give us one of you, that we may defile her, and if not, we will defile you all. then let them be defiled rather than hand over to them one soul from Israel. Better that they should be all defiled than for them to actually hand over one of their own to be intentionally defiled. Reminds me a lot of Joseph and his 12 brothers. His 12 brothers sold him into slavery. And maybe that's why they make this determination, is that it is better for them to all unintentionally to be defiled rather than for them to actually allow one of them to be defiled, and for the sake of the rest. Because, they have to basically collude between themselves to decide which one of us. How do you make that decision? Which one are we going to let be defiled? Just the mere fact that they would do that would be a sin in and of itself. So there we have, at one case it is, there is no sin, and the other case there are two sins. Okay. Terumot chapter 9. Mishna 1. He who plants terumah, if unwittingly, may uproot it. If of set purpose, he must allow it to remain. Okay, so what is the set purpose? So as a penalty, the produce will be forbidden to him. He must not plow it up, as it would appear as if he is willfully destroying terumah. Which makes sense. If he had already grown a third, or if it had already grown a third of its full size, whether he had planted it unwittingly or intentionally, he must allow it to remain. But in the case of flax, even when planted intentionally, he must uproot it. Mishna 2. And it is subject to gleanings, the forgotten sheaf, and peah. Poor Israelites, the poor priests, which kind of gives you a little bit of insight here. That there were, if it didn't happen, it would be in the Talmud. So right here, we know that there were indeed poor priests, and poor priests may glean them, but the poor Israelite must sell theirs to priests for the price of terumah, and the money becomes theirs. Okay, so terumah has a greater value than regular produce, and it reminds me of the story. Of course, what doesn't remind me of a story, right? Reminds me of a story, a wonderful story that the Nickelsburg Rebbe told years ago on the radio. And he talked about I believe it was his great-grandfather, who was, the Rebbe of Nickelsburg. And he always kept coins in his pocket for the poor. And one day, for some reason, a poor person came to him, and he didn't have any coins. And he didn't have anything to give him, coin-wise. So he takes the ring off of his hand and gives it to the person. Gives it to this poor person. And he goes home. And the Rebbe's wife notices that his ring's gone and says, "What happened to your ring?" And he says, "Well, this poor person came to me and I had no money to give them, so I gave them the ring." And she said, "Why did you give him the ring? The ring was gold. Why would you give it to them?" So the Nickelsburg Rebbe, "Oh my goodness, it was gold." And he goes running out and running down the street to find this poor person that he had given the ring to. Finally finds the person he gave the ring to, catches up to him, stops him and says, "The ring I gave you," he says, "don't sell it for copper. It's gold. Get the price for gold." And he turns around and he walks away. And I just love that story. He didn't run back to say, "I gave this to you by mistake. It's a gold ring. It's worth a lot of money. Let me give you a few coins and you can go on your way." No, he says, I gave this charity. And obviously I was intended to give this charity. So don't make the mistake of selling it for something of less value. Get the full value of what I gave you. And here we have the same thing. So a poor person, a poor Israelite, or a poor priest, if the poor Israelite who gleans this stuff, this Terumot, sells it to the priest, but he sells it at the price of Terumot, which is worth more than a regular crop would be. Rabbi Tarfon, wonderful rabbi. There's a fantastic story about Rabbi Tarfon and the buying of the city, and I think I talked about this one day that I said I would. When we get to that portion, I will read that story. But if you get a chance, look up Rabbi Tarfon. He is an amazing rabbi. So Rabbi Tarfon says, "Only poor priests may glean them, terumah, lest the others forget and put it in their mouths." Whereupon Rabbi Akiva said to him, "If that be so, then only those who are clean should be allowed to glean." So let's see if we got an explanation of why Rabbi Akiva said that. "Since a priest who has become unclean must not eat terumah," to this challenge, Rabbi Tarfon's rejoinder no doubt was that a priest who is unclean is very careful not to eat terumah. I guess makes sense. Mishna 3. It is also subject to tithes. The poor man's tithe, both Israelites and priests that are poor may accept them, but the poor Israelite must sell that which is theirs to the priests for the price of terumah, and the money belongs to them. He who threshes the grain is to be praised, but he who treads it what should he do? He must suspend bags from the neck of the animal and place therein fodder of the same kind that will result when he will neither muzzle the animal nor cause it to eat terumah. And as we know, we're not allowed to muzzle the animal when it is working, because that's cruel. So basically, they're saying, okay, well, if the if the animal is is milling milling wheat, then you should put the same kind of wheat into the thing where the animal eats out of, so that it can eat, so it won't be tempted to eat the terumot. But we're not allowed to muzzle the animal because it's cruel. The animal has to eat. The animal is working just as we eat when we're working. Mishnah 4. What grows from terumah is terumah, but that which first grew out from it is hulin. As for untithed produce, first tithe and aftergrowth of the sabbatical year, the Shemitah, terumah grown outside the land, the admixture of hulin and terumah, which we went into great detail last week, the first fruits, what grow from them is regarded as hulin. What grows from dedicated produce, the second tithe is hulin, and is to be redeemed at its value, not at the value of terumah, and at the time when it was sown. Mishnah 5. If 100 rows were planted with terumah seeds, and one with hulin, they all are permitted, if they are of a kind whose seed perishes in the soil. So the seed just falls away. But if they are of the kind whose seed does not perish in the soil, then even if there be 100 rows of hulin and one of terumah, they all are prohibited. And we had this a few weeks ago when we were studying Shemitah about, how many rows of this to how many rows of that, how much space had to be between this crop and that crop, and what constituted a wall or a separation and all that other stuff. Remember how we, 6 handbreadths high, 3 handbreadths deep and 6 wide for a ditch, and so on and so forth. Mishnah 6. As for the untithed produce, what grows from it is permissible, if of a kind whose seed perishes in the soil. But if a kind whose seed does not perish, then even what grows from what later grew out of it is forbidden, which is the kind whose seed does not perish, anything like arum. Okay, so it just refers us to another section. It refers us to Peah, chapter 6, verse 10. Arum, garlic and onions. Rabbi Judah says onions, in the respect they are like barley. Okay, so in what respect are they like barley? They are like barley whose seed perishes. Barley is cited because its seed perishes very quickly. Explains Rabbi Judah's statement thus: only seeds of onions as large as barley do not perish, but those smaller than barley do perish. So it comes down to size, I see. Mishnah 7. He who weeds leek plants for a Gentile, though the produce still be untithed, may snatch therefrom a casual meal. Plantings of Terumot, which had become unclean and were replanted, become clean insofar that they do not cause defilement. But they must not be eaten until the edible part of the stalk has been lopped off. Rabbi Judah says he must, before eating, lop off a second time that which grew on the edible part. Okay. Clears it up. I mean, just absolutely clears it right up, huh? Okay. Terumot, chapter 10, Mishna 1. If an onion of terumah was placed into lentils, and the onion was whole, the lentils are permissible. But if the onion had been cut up, it is forbidden if the onion imparts a flavor. And we've seen this before about imparting a flavor, some kind of an admixture where it changes the flavor. Whether the onion is whole or cut up, it is forbidden. If the onion imparts a flavor in the case of other dishes, which we read before. Whether the onion is whole or cut up, it is forbidden if it imparts a flavor. Rabbi Judah permits it in the case of pickled fish, because there it is used only to remove the unpleasant flavor. Oh, okay. If an apple of terumah was chopped and placed into dough of hulin, so that it leavened it, the dough is forbidden. If barley of terumah fell into a cistern of water, though the barley deteriorate in, the waters are permissible. Mishna 3. If one takes off warm bread from the oven and places it over an open barrel of wine of terumah, Rabbi Meir says it is forbidden, but Rabbi Judah permits it. Rabbi Joseph permits the bread if it is of wheat, but not of barley, because barley absorbs. So again, this whole thing with absorbing flavor or an odor or something like that. Place the warm bread over the wine. If it's barley, it's going to absorb the flavor of the wine, and the flavor of the wine of the terumah. Now, why anybody would do that, I don't know, but obviously there must be a reason for it. Okay. If an oven was heated with cumin of terumah, and bread was baked therein, the bread is permitted, because it is the smell, but not the flavor of cumin that it conveys therein. So it picks up this odor. It's kind of like, I guess, kind of like smoking something. You would pick up the smoke smell. Well, I guess it does impart a flavor. Yeah, it does impart a flavor. So, not a good example. So, forget that. Anyway, in this case, the bread only absorbs the smell. It doesn't actually absorb any kind of a flavor or anything from the cumin. So therefore, it's permissible just because of the fact that it hasn't changed the flavor of it. It hasn't become, in other words, it hasn't become an admixture. Mishna 5. If fenugreek, okay, so that bears looking at. A leguminous, like a string bean, a leguminous plant with seeds used in farriere. Its fruit and stalk taste alike. Okay. I'll take their word for that. So if fenugreek fell into a wine vat and it was terumot or second tithe, and if there is in the seed alone without the stalk sufficient to impart a flavor, it is forbidden. But in the case of 7-year produce or mixed seeds in vineyards or dedicated produce, it is forbidden if in both seed and stalk there is sufficient to impart a flavor. Okay, and this goes back to what we just read, because it talked about the stalk and the seed actually having the same flavor. Mishna 6, if one had bunches of fenugreek, of mixed seeds of a vineyard, they must be burnt. If he had bunches of fenugreek of untithed produce, he must beat them and calculate the amount of seed within them and set aside terumot from the seed, but not from the stalks. But if he did set aside the terumot also from the stalks, he must not say, I will beat out the seeds and take the stalks and give only the seeds, but he must give the stalks together with the seeds. If olives of Hulin are picked together with olives of Terumot, whether it was a case where crushed olives of Hulin were picked together with crushed olives of Terumot, or crushed olives of Hulin with whole olives of Terumot, or with juice of Terumot, they are forbidden. But if whole olives of Hulin are picked with crushed olives of Terumot, they are permitted. I would assume that is because they can actually be picked out. Because because whole olives only emit flavor, but do not absorb that of the olives of Terumot. Mishna 8. If unclean fish was pickled with clean fish, the brine thereof is forbidden if in a barrel of 2 seahs the unclean fish weighs 10 zuz in Judean measure, which is 5 seahs in Galilean measures. Rabbi Joshua says it need be a quarter of a log in 2 seahs. Rabbi Jose says 1/16. Here we go with the 1/16, or the one that was 1/60th anyway. 1/16 thereof. Mishnah 8. If unclean locusts were picked together with clean ones, they do not make the brine forbidden. Rabbi Zadok testified that the brine of unclean locusts is clean. Whosoever, Mishnah 10, whosoever vegetables are pickled together are permitted, save when pickled with leeks of Hulin pickled with those of Terumot, or other vegetables of Hulin with leeks of Terumot are forbidden, but leeks of Hulin with vegetables of Terumot are permitted. Mishna 11. Rabbi Jose says, whatsoever is stewed with beet becomes forbidden, because the latter imparts a flavor. Rabbi Shimon says, cabbage from a field artificially irrigated that is stewed with cabbage from the field watered by rain is forbidden, because it absorbs. Rabbi Akiva says, all things cooked together are permitted, except those with meat. Rabbi Johanan ben Nuri says, liver renders other things forbidden, but does not itself become forbidden, because it exudes and does not absorb. Mishnah 12. If an egg is boiled with forbidden spices, even its yolk is forbidden, because it absorbs. The water in which the terumah has been stewed or pickled is forbidden to non-priests. Okay. Let's see where we are at here. Okay. We are about halfway through, and we're going to pause here. We're going to take a little break and have a moment to have a little nosh, get a little something to drink, take care of a little business. And again, we're working with two computers here, so please bear with us. If the audio is a little out of sync, just stick around. We will be back in 6 minutes.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. show starts in 3 minutes. The show starts in 2 minutes. The show starts in 1 minute. And now, on with the show.
And we are back. Okay, so let's do a quick check on the chat room here. See who is in the chat room. Miriam, Brooke, Daniel, Yochanan, Jeff, Yair. Let's see. John D. Spiritual babies who had to leave us. It is, I guess, 2 o'clock in the morning where they are right now, so I can understand that. And Max, and it's late where Max is too. But Max is with us, and all of those, and those who are watching in the background and not in the chat room. We're glad you're all here, and those of you who are watching on the rebroadcast, always glad to have you with us. Glad to have you all with us. Hope you'll be with us regularly. Okay. So, Daniel has a comment in here. It says, well, actually, let's step back here a little bit. John D. actually put in, this is the nice thing about having this chat room and having a lot of people in here, so that fenugreek, I had no idea what it was. John D. says fenugreek is a healing herb and spice. It gives off a mucus-like liquid when soaked in water. that is used in homeopathy and herbal cures. Interesting. Okay. Now, Daniel put in the chat room, wow, I really need someone to sit down with me to guide me in Talmud study. Yes, it is a very difficult subject, and hence why it takes 7 years to complete the study cycle. He says, I can understand what is said in the Talmud, but there are some things, or more than some, that need a good explanation on it. Okay. Colleen, if you go to the our Shul group, the House of Seven Beggars Synagogue, over on Facebook, and you go down through the posts, you will see Colleen had a post in there where she put up a link to a Talmud glossary. Now, I have a Talmud glossary here, but Talmud glossaries are very expensive. You can find a PDF. There's a PDF Talmud glossary, but she found a great website that actually had it on there. So if there was something on there that you heard, you could quickly go up to the alphabet at the top of it, click it. It will give you a bunch of words. You could scroll down real quick and actually find the word very quickly in there. Okay, so, and of course, those of you who have the PDF and which is in the description down below in the on the video, there is a link to the PDF that we are using, and that has all the notes and everything in it, and you can download that for free. It takes a little bit of time to download it for free, but it's well worth it. I mean, the thing is like, almost 10,000 pages long, so you can imagine. So, there we have it. Okay, so we left off with Mishna, Megillat Terumot, chapter 11. Mishnah 1. If one must not put into fish brine a cake of pressed figs or dried figs, since it spoils them, but one may place wine of terumah into fish brine. One must not perfume the oil, but it may be made into honeyed wine. Wine of terumah must not be boiled, because that makes it decrease. Of course, it evaporates, right? Rabbi Judah permits this because it improves it. Okay, so it evaporates, and basically, we're basically not boiling it, okay? We're actually just raising the temperature because alcohol burns off at a fairly low heat. So we're raising the temperature of it, and what is coming off of it, what is left, has a much richer flavor to it. Hence why, and Yair brought this up. He sent this to me in a private message about this whole thing about heating wine. We talked about heating wine and kosher for Passover and all that other stuff. And if you tasted wine that are kosher for Passover, you find out that it has a much fuller flavor to it, a much stronger flavor to it. And that is because what it does is it's intended to kill off any non-kosher yeast that may have been introduced because of it gathering on the skins of the grapes. Okay, so that explains that for those of you who are interested. So I don't know how many were, but I found it interesting. I know Yair found it interesting. So as long as me and Yair were happy, I guess it was worth bringing up. So okay, Mishnah 2. I should also say Hazak Hazak V'nish Hazak. I'm sorry. I should say Baruchti. And now I can't think of it. I had it in my head, and it just completely flew out of my head. Oh my goodness. Okay. If all of those fails, go to the Siddur. For the life of me, I can't think of what it is now. I mean, I just had it. Oh, my goodness. I don't know whether it's getting old or just having too much in my head at the same time, but and you know what? It wouldn't be in here, would it? It's got to be in here. Okay, give me a minute. Because now this is bugging me. Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. I can't believe. And I can't believe the Siddur doesn't actually have it in here. Okay. Okay, somebody in the chat room. What is it when somebody is called to the Torah and after the reading of the portion of the Torah that they're called up for, and I know the response. The response is Baruch Tehiyeh, but I can't remember. For the life of me, I can't remember what you say to somebody that's coming down from the reading of the Torah. Odd. And I just had it in my head, and now I can't think of it. For the life of me, I can't think of it. So we'll see if somebody in the chat room can refresh my memory as to what it is. So let's go on and hope that somebody's got it. I know somebody's got it. Where were we? We did okay. Mishnah 2. If a non-priest drank honey of dates, wine of apples, vinegar from winter grapes, and all other kinds of fruit juice of Terumot, Rabbi Eliezer declares him liable to repay their value and the fifth. But Rabbi Joshua exempts them from the fifth. Rabbi Eliezer declares these susceptible to uncleanness as liquids. Rabbi Joshua, however, says the sages have not enumerated 7 liquids as those that count spices, but have expressly stated 7 liquids make things susceptible to defilement, whereas all other liquids are not susceptible. Okay, Mishnah 3. Mishnah 3. One must not make dates into honey. Miriam, yeah, I was actually looking for the Hebrew. No, and that's not the right blessing either. But thanks for looking that up. Okay. Yesher koach. Hey, gewalt. I can't believe I forgot. Yesher koach. I wanted to say to Yair Yesher koach for being called up to the Torah. This is the first time that we have done this in a very long time. That we during our service we actually called somebody up for the reading of the Torah, and because Yair has a brand new grandchild, couple months now, we kind of decided to give him the first Aliyah. And so, Yesher koach to Yair. Okay. And to his whole mishpucha. Okay. I knew I'd remember it eventually. I'm just surprised it didn't take me till 3 o'clock in the morning to remember it. Okay. Okay, so we were on, okay, one must not make dates into honey, apples into wine, and winter grapes into vinegar, or change any other kind of fruit that is terumah or second tithe from their natural state, with the sole exception of olives and grapes. One does not administer the 40 lashes on account of orlah except when the produce of olives and grapes except with the produce of olives and grapes. Liquids cannot be brought as first fruits except the produce of olives and grapes. And no fruit juice is susceptible to uncleanness as liquids except the produce of olives and grapes. No fruit juice is brought on the altar except that which proceeds from olives and grapes. Okay. Mishna 4. The stalks. The stalks of fresh figs and dried figs, acorns and carobs of terumah are forbidden to non-priests. Okay, so let's see if there's what they say the reason is for that. And they say being considered as part of the actual fruit. Okay. Okay, so the stalks are forbidden because they're actually considered part of the fruit. Okay. Mishna 5. Kernels of terumah are forbidden when in the possession of a priest, but permitted when he casts them away. Similarly, the bones of holy offerings are forbidden when the priest has them in his possession, but permitted when he casts them away. Coarse bran is permitted, but fine bran is forbidden if it is of new wheat, and permitted if it is of old wheat. One may adopt in terumah the practice followed in Hulin. He who sifts a cob or two of fine flour from a seah of wheat must not abandon the rest, but deposit it in some hidden place. Mishna 6. If a store chamber was cleared of wheat of terumah, one need not set down and collect each grain, but sweep it all up in his usual manner, and then deposit hulin there. Okay, so this would be a storehouse, right? Similarly, if a jar of oil is upset, it need not sit down and he need not sit down and scoop it up with his fingers, but deal with it as he would in a case of hulin. Obviously, he's not going to scoop it up and use it as terumah anymore, right? Because now it's fallen out and it's become defiled. Okay. And just as we saw that, in the instance of the cracked container, that if there isn't so much in there, if there's enough in there to save it, but if not, just allow it to flow out and become defiled on its own. Okay, so it's hit the floor, so it's been defiled, so he just cleans it up in the usual manner. Mishnah 8. He who pours out from jar to jar and allows 3 drops to drip may place hulin therein. But if he inclines the jar on its side in order to drain it, it is terumah. How much terumah of tithe of demeh must be there for him to take it to the priest? 1/8 of an eighth. Okay. Mishnah 9. Vetches. A species of bean rarely used as human food, serving mostly as fodder for animals. But since man eats it in cases of emergency, terumah must be taken therefrom. Okay. Got that. So, vetches of terumah may be given to cattle, beasts, or fowls. If an Israelite hired a cow from a priest, he may give vetches of terumah to eat, but if a priest hired a cow from an Israelite, though the responsibility of feeding it is his, he must not feed it with vetches of terumah. If an Israelite undertakes the care of a cow from a priest, he must not feed it with vetches of terumah. But if a priest undertakes the care of a cow from an Israelite, he may feed it on vetches of terumah. Well, this sounds like it's just saying exactly the opposite. Okay, let's. Vetches of terumah may be given to cattle, beasts, or fowls. If an Israelite hired a cow from a priest, okay, the Israelite hired a cow from a priest, he may give it vetches of terumah to eat. But if the priest hired it from the cow from the Israelite, though the responsibility of feeding it is his, he must not feed it from the vetches of terumah. If an Israelite undertakes the care. Okay. Okay. The difference is in the care of or hired it from. Okay. So, if it's hired, okay, it's one instance. If it's in the care of, it's a different instance. So in the care of, it's just exactly the opposite. Well, I'm glad we reread that because that looked a little confusing. Okay, it was confusing. Let's face it. Okay, so so if an Israelite undertakes the care of a cow from a priest, he must not feed it with the vetches of terumah. But if the priest undertakes the care of a cow from an Israelite, he may feed it on the vetches of terumah. Okay. Mishnah 10. One may kindle oil that has to be burnt in synagogues, houses of study, dark alleys, and for sick people when a priest is near. If the daughter of an Israelite married to a priest regularly goes to her father's house, her father may kindle such oil in her presence. It may also be kindled at a banqueting house, but not in a house of mourning. So Rabbi Jose says, it may be kindled in the house of mourning, but not in the banqueting house. Rabbi Meir forbids it in both places, but Rabbi Shimon permits it in either case. So, I mean, again, 3 Jews, 4 opinions, right? Okay. So that concludes the Megillat Terumot, and we are about at the end of our time here. So I think this is a good spot to stop. And as long as we have a few minutes left, again, I want to thank everybody for being here for the study. Hope you'll return to be with us tomorrow evening at 8 p.m. for the Torah study with myself and Zeta. And while we have a few minutes left, I want to say that we have been studying a lot about Terumot over the last couple of weeks, and before that we talked about the Shemitah. We talked about the Peah, the separation of the gleanings, the left sheaf in the field, what was to be given to the poor, what was to be given to the priest, and Terumot, all the different offerings, and so on and so forth. We've been talking about this for a while, and at this point it should become very much aware that these things are very important. We spend a lot of time reading about them and discussing them, and the rabbis have discussed them for many, many years. With that said, one of the things that we have been struggling with here is the fact that we do this for free. We have been doing this for 10 years, and we have depended on donations to help support us. And over the 10 years, we have probably received very little support. We have over 100 members in our synagogue, and we essentially have about 3 people who actually send us any kind of support on a regular basis, or any kind of a regular basis at all. It costs a great deal of money to bring these broadcasts to you, not only in money for all the equipment that is around here. We run special computers, mixers, different cameras. Again, as you notice, we've been running, we run 2 to 3 computers at a time to bring these broadcasts to you, and it is very expensive. It's been coming to the point where it has been, it's becoming more and more cumbersome for me to cover this out of my own pocket. So I'm asking those of you who are able to, and those who are not here, I will be posting this section up in the Shul Facebook page. Remember that if you were at a brick and mortar synagogue, the membership dues and stuff would be in the thousands of dollars. Here you get it for free, and we only ask for donations to help support us so that we can continue bringing it to you for free. I hope everybody will take that to heart and will do what they can to help us to continue to have a community, to bring these broadcasts to you, and to continue our Kiruv work, which is to bring other Jews back to Judaism, those people who are unable to attend a brick and mortar shul, and those who have just kind of been away for whatever reason. Our whole goal is to bring people back. So with that, we are coming to the end of our time together. I want to thank you all for being here. Don't forget, tomorrow night, 8 p.m., Torah study with Rabbi and Zeta. And until then, we'll get everything ready here to close out, and we will say, Laila Tov.